Good morning, everyone, and it's wonderful to be here with all of you at Multiply today. Before I get into what I'm going to say, I have to make a confession, probably not just from my side, but probably which is relevant to all of us that's in the room here. Many of the smartest companies that are out there in the world, we're all using the most transformational technology of our generation to just do our old work faster. We've bolted a jet engine onto a horse cart. The horse cart's running 40% faster. We're pretty happy about it. We're probably not questioning whether we should be sitting on the cart at all. And that's the state of where enterprise AI is today in 2026. I'm going to make an argument for the fact that the real advantage comes down from being able to reimagine experiences as against just bolting on to an existing workflow. But before we go there, it's important to ground ourselves in a little bit of data. Adoption is not the issue anymore. Companies are using AI. We all know that. We're all doing it. We're seeing efficiency gains, up to 40% in some cases. So that's not an issue at all either. We're seeing a return on investment. We're seeing, on average, a $3.70 return on investment for every dollar that we're investing. And we're investing more and more money. There's been a 3x, 3.2x investment into AI year on year that we're seeing going into it. Wonderful. So what's the problem? The problem is that only a third of the companies and organizations are trying to reimagine what they're doing as against just getting the gains of the efficiency that's coming up. So the next question that really comes to mind is, why is that happening? Why does AI just get bolted onto existing workflows as against redefinition or reimagination of what that workflow should look like? It's not stupidity. It's the pull of gravity. And there are 4 factors that actually go into why this actually happens to organizations. The first one is the path of least resistance. I'm sure we've all gone through this. It's quite obvious. If there's a gain that we can get in a particular quarter, it's probably better than kind of trying to do something large and transformational. The system's set up to reward and recommend and encourage those quick wins that we keep talking about all the time. The second one is what I call legacy gravity. And it's really about a legacy system that you have. It's probably been around for a number of years. It's built with a different architecture. It isn't open to kind of taking some of the modernization that you want to do, the AI that you want to put onto it. It requires a redesign or a re-architecture in order to get there. And that legacy pulls you down at times to then say, let's just go build something on top of this to kind of move faster as against trying to go back and redo what we already have. The third one is tech debt. And you might think, as tech debt keeps increasing, it probably is the better thing to just scrap whatever we did earlier and kind of replace it with something new. Maybe we can get rid of all the tech debt that we have. But it doesn't actually work that way. Because a lot of that tech debt has been built by people who probably don't exist in the organization anymore or built many years ago. And when they're no longer in the organization, you're now, teams are afraid to actually go make those changes, saying, hey, if we go in and change this stuff and break the system, we're going to be in the newspaper, we're going to be on social media, it's going to be a big deal. And so it's much easier to then go in and say, let's just build around what's there today and leave whatever is core and leave it there. But therein lies the problem, because as you keep bolting stuff on top of the existing core, that tech debt is only increasing. It's only going to get worse. And the it's the other factor is the risk associated with it, like I was saying, and nobody ever got fired for doing a quick win project versus, a complete redesign where you had to go in and do that and it failed. Think about that, right? The fourth factor is just the skills that we have within our organizations. Do we have the right skills? Is everybody upskilled to kind of take on the AI wave that's out there? But not only the skill sets, it's also about how we incentivize people. Are we incentivizing for reimagination? And unless the structures around that changes, it's going to be hard. We're going to continue to keep, rewarding and recognizing the small wins that keep coming up. And they're going to continue to keep coming. So I thought we would take a use case that all of us have probably, everyone in this room has probably done at some point of time in your life, opening a bank account. Many of us have probably done it before the AI era, some of us during the AI era, and probably some of us who are going to do this down the line in the future as well. If you think about it, this is a high-friction process today. It's a high-intent use case because a customer is coming forward and saying, hey, I'm going to give you my money. But just think of the process, right? Like as we walk through, you have a form. You need to fill up a form. Then you need to provide ID. And that ID needs to get validated on the back end. I'm talking about the pre-AI era, right? There are days where it has to go offline, get reviewed, come back. Then you have all your KYC checks and address verification, anti-money laundering for the corporates, a bunch of checks which happen on the background. And then the whole problem of how do I fund this account comes back to play. So we've created a lot of friction, and at each of these points, we have customers that are dropping off for various reasons, right? But eventually, almost 60% of our customers are abandoning a high-intent use case. At the largest and slowest corporate banks, they're taking about 6 weeks to get these customers onboarded today. And that's relating to a lot of lost opportunity. It's just in Europe, it's like 5.7 billion euros a year. So what are our options? We have two options. Bolting on AI into the existing process or reimagining the bank. Both have ceilings. One is pretty much raising the ceiling, which is basically bolting AI onto the existing process. The other one, which is reimagining the bank, opens your ceiling and lets you go out to the sky. And we'll see both of these, right? So I'll first take you through just bolting on AI to the existing process. It looks exactly the same as we saw on the previous slide. You've got the same set of steps that are out there. All we're doing right now is we're adding a bit of AI to this, where we're saying, we have a chatbot that kind of greets you up front, tells you what you have to do, answers a bunch of questions for you, helps guide you through the process of filling up the form. We get you to scan in your ID. You still have to go search for that passport or driver's license or whatever document you need. Once you do that, OCR probably takes over and kind of pre-populates some of the fields, which helps you a little bit on the data entry. You're then some of the KYC and AML processes are automated through the agents that are actually out there, and then funding the account. In India, probably is an easier thing now with UPI. In some of the other countries, probably without the centralized network, you actually have to go set up your accounts and do a whole bunch of things to get money transferred in micro deposits between accounts. It's not a seamless process. But what are we doing over here? We haven't changed any of the steps. We've made those steps faster. We've made those steps more intelligent. We've basically taken the road and made it faster. That's all we've done. We haven't really questioned whether we need this road, whether there's an alternate road. Is there anything else we need to do? Something different. What should it really look like in the AI era? So we want to transform setting up a bank account from being a process of completing forms and submitting data and, identification to a conversation that you can have with the bank to set that account up. And it's really about just four or five words that you use saying, I'd like to open an account. That's it, as a customer. Today, we're able to let you into airports through an iris scan. We don't ask you for any identification. You can go in without any identification because the system already knows you. It's the same thing. You extend that and you say, scan, get your data, it's not even going into a form, the data is already with the bank, the account's open in seconds, you get your debit card in your digital wallet, and then you use the AI agents to kind of build upon the account setup and for the funding of those accounts. So we're really transforming the steps here. This isn't a stepwise process anymore. It's actually a conversation that you're having with the bank that's setting up your account that is fundamentally changing the way an account is set up in the future. So that's the difference between bolting on AI and really redefining and reimagining the process itself. But the real question should be then, if we're getting some advantage and if there is an advantage from bolting on, there was a 40% efficiency, we saw all of that, why should we reimagine? What is the advantage of reimagining? Is there a bigger advantage in reimagining? And I would like to say it's based on 3 dimensions. Obviously, it's cost. Cost, and think in the case of the account opening, the cost to acquire a customer. Banks today, non-digital banks today, are spending in the range of $900 to acquire a customer. The digital banks only spend $20. And you might ask, what's the difference? We saw 2 screens, probably one which had a little bit of AI, the other one which was probably a different process. It's not that process that's changing the cost dynamics. It's the infrastructure that you've built behind that which actually costs the $900 for a non-digital bank to get the same job done. There are branches, there are groups of teams that are doing KYC and evaluation, and there's documents getting printed, and there's infrastructure that's set up to do all of that. All of that kind of disappears when you go down and reimagine the process. And that reduces the cost. When you think of time, it's not just the time for the customer where you say we change the account opening from a few days to a few minutes or a few seconds. It's also about the time you take to make the transformation to change some of that technology and some of that operational process behind the scenes. AI today is making that process faster as well, which means we're able to get to a point where we can actually transform systems faster with the help of AI. And finally, it comes down to effort as well. If we're not bolting on, we're not adding on tech debt. If we're not adding on tech debt, then we're not adding on additional effort that we actually need to manage these systems and maintain them down the line in the future. So we're going to make sure that that debt doesn't become like an interest payment that you have to pay for the rest of your life, but really kind of goes down to being, hey, we just need to do this once and then we can kind of jump on and kind of take it up from there. But beyond all of these 3 things, there is one more. It is that the competitive advantage that you're going to get by just bolting on AI is going to go away because your competitors are also having access to the same set of co-pilots that you have. So you're going to raise the ceiling a little bit, they're going to raise the ceiling a little bit, it's going to keep going on. The real differentiator, and this is the point where probably your competition hasn't really started thinking about right now, is the process of reimagination or redefinition. When you start doing that, you start setting yourself apart. But what does it take to do this? Is it, you might by now kind of say, yeah, this makes sense, we should probably really think about reimagining. But I have an old legacy 40-year-old system sitting in my business, and I have a regulator that also in banking, we have regulators that are pretty stringent, and they're pretty much watching everything that we do, so everything has to be perfect because it's people's money that you're moving from place to place. How do we do it? How do we go about doing this? Is there really, should we just take the advantage of the efficiency gains and just stay there? And I would say no. It's important to make sure you figure out how to go about doing this. And one of the ways that you can do it is really by breaking that larger problem down into smaller journeys and saying, I'm going to go solve the most high friction, high value use case first. Once you pick that up, it's also about laying the foundation. In our case, as we started to do this with banks, we built the foundations at two places, right? Like we built the first layer above the legacy core, which was basically an API layer that we built. And then we did a data consolidation on the lower layer as well. So you've now kind of bounded the system between two where you can actually manage the modernization within that bounds which is over there and allow you to hollow out what is sitting inside. So that's very important to make sure that you're set up to do that. Once that happens, you have to make sure that you build and run the old and the new in parallel. In computer science, we probably heard of the strangler pattern. You've probably heard of how you kind of just get rid of a system over a period of time and just take it out of the equation. That's how you do it. You run both systems in parallel, keep putting transactions through the new system. It sits in the background. You're not impacted by any issues that come out, and eventually you'll be able to transition when you're happy enough to make that transition. But over and above all of this, you also need to have the right governance process. You need to make sure that you're able to kind of understand what decisions an agent can take, what decisions a human being needs to step in for. How do you make sure that you're getting the right output that's coming there? Without all of that, you won't be able to scale and repeat this process. The tools are more or less ready for doing all of this. The operational processes are what really have to change at this point. We're currently still set up. Some of us organizations, when I go back to the banking paradigm, are still set up with KYC teams and AML teams and teams that are actually working on account initiation and account setup and a lot of sub-teams that sit under them. But it's really about going back and figuring out how do we go back and reorganize ourselves in order to do this? That's really where the challenge lies, rather than the technology today. And I want to leave you all with 3 questions that come to mind. If you really started today in the AI world, and you know everything that AI can do for you, all the capabilities that are out there, would you still build what you built years ago the same way? And if the answer to that question is no, then you know what needs to change. The second one, an even more deeper one, is which of your processes within your own business are you trying to optimize at this point of time using AI? Have a look at those. And perhaps question, should this process exist at all? I love the third one, and I think it needs to be imprinted on every boardroom that's out there. I don't know why I'm saying 3%. We have 1% startups also that are coming up these days. But if you had a small startup that was coming after your most productive and most profitable use case and workflow, how long do you think you could stand through with the efficiency gains that you're building for right now? Is it a few days, a few weeks, a few months? Because it's quite likely that there's some company out there that's already doing that, trying to disrupt. So I go back to where I started, and I say, the real advantage here is not really about bolting the jet engine onto the horse. We got to figure out how to build the plane. That's really what we need to do. Thank you very much.